Zelete, thank you for your love and support. I appreciate you all. Africa has an extremism problem, and for a very long time, the continent has been tiptoeing around it. Leaders pretend it isn't there. Politicians make soft excuses, and nobody wants to stand up and address the underlying drivers of why whole regions are being torn apart by violence. Everyone wants to talk about weapons, military hardware, foreign aid packages, and troops on the ground. But hardly anyone wants to sit down and talk about the ideas, the rhetoric, the pulpit, and the financial networks that feed these armed movements in the first place. Right now, that conversation has been forced open across the entire continent because one leader decided to draw a line in the sand. Captain Ibrahim Traoré are all in all of Burkina Faso. As soon as Traoré took this stand, the internet broke out into a frenzy. A viral message started circulating across social media claiming that Traoré issued a direct personal challenge to the famous Nigerian Islamic cleric Sheikh Ahmed Gumi. The post claimed Traoré ordered Gumi to come down to Burkina Faso himself and try to stop the government from enforcing its laws. It was framed like a high-stakes standoff between a young military ruler and an influential foreign religious figure. If you check official government records, press releases, and verified media logos, you discover something immediate. Captain Ibrahim Traoré never said those words. He never issued that day, and he didn't even bother to publish a reply to Gumi's public critiques. When a leader is running a nation that is fighting for its very survival, they do not have the time to stop and then engage in social media back and forth arguments with every loud voice across an international border. They stay focused on the work and let their policies speak for themselves. However, while that viral quote was complete internet fiction, the real story behind it is far bigger and far more consequential for the future of West Africa. In late June, the Transitional Parliament of Burkina Faso sat down and adopted a massive comprehensive religious freedom law containing over 100 articles. It was passed anonymously with 0 votes against it. Before that bill was brought to the floor, the government brought every major community stakeholder to the consultation table, sitting down with the Federation of Islamic Association of Burkina Faso, Catholic bishops, the Evangelical Federation, and transitional tribal chiefs. The law explicitly guarantees and protects the rights of every single Burkinabe citizen to practice their faith freely, but it also establishes clear state authority over how religious organizations operate, where their money comes from, and how public preaching is regulated across the nation. The government's position is plain. If an imam, pastor, or preacher uses their stage to incite violence or spread radical ideas, the state will step in and shut that platform down. If a scholar preaches peace and unity, the state will support them. And all in all, Captain Ibrahim Traoré also addressed young Burkinabe students studying religious law in foreign institutions abroad. His message to them was simple and practical. Burkina Faso is under attack and essentially a massive construction site. The country does not need more foreign-trained theologians right now. What it desperately needs are engineers, medical doctors, scientists, and builders to reconstruct the national infrastructure. He called on them to come back home and build the state. That policy direction brought sharp resistance from outside Burkina Faso, led by Sheikh Ahmed Gumi in Nigeria. Gumi published a response calling Traoré too young and too inexperienced, arguing that confronting religious sentiment would anger young people and give armed insurgents groups a massive recruitment pitch. This argument brings us to the core debate facing African security today. On one side is the dialogue and negotiation model, which says governments should soft paddle around radical preaching to avoid provoking extremism. On the other side is the sovereign state model adopted by Traoré, which says that if a state alters its laws or backs down simply because an armed group might get offended, that state has already surrendered its sovereignty before a single bullet is fired. When you examine the real-world evidence, you have to ask hard questions about that dialogue model. After years of calls for negotiation with armed groups in northwest in Nigeria, are those communities safe today? Have the farm raids stopped? Have the mass kidnappings ended? Armed insurgent groups do not attack villages because a leader gave a speech on television. They do it to seize territory and force people under their control. Showing a soft touch does not make an extremist group put down their weapons. It gives them space to expand. To see what a healthy societal response looks like, look at neighboring Ghana. When a local preacher posted a video telling followers that anyone who speaks against their prophet should be physically attacked, the strongest backlash came directly from Ghana's own Islamic leadership. The National Chief Imam of Ghana, Sheikh Dr. Osman Nuhu, issued a direct statement unequivocally condemning any call to violence and inciting that religious disagreement must be handled through constitutional legal process. Facing that unified stand, the preacher issued a public apology. Ghana's community leadership proved that standing up against radical speech is not an attack on faith. It is the ultimate protection for peaceful believers. This situation comes far deeper than local preachers. It touches on global power. For decades, foreign interference in Africa focused on Western powers seeking military bases or minerals. This situation goes far deeper than local preachers. It touches on global power. For decades, foreign interference in Africa focused on Western powers seeking military bases or minerals. But another major pipeline of influence comes from ideological and financial networks in parts of the Middle East. For years, foreign capitals has flown into West Africa to fund specific institutions and theological scholarships, pushing rigid doctrines. When an African leader audits foreign religious money and tells youth to study engineering at home, it cuts directly into that influence pipeline. That is why state-backed international media outlets like Al Jazeera suddenly rank critical features framing security regulations as a religious crisis. When you strip away the internet rumors, the reality stands out clear. A country cannot build roads, schools, hospitals, or industries if its legal system can be overridden by armed groups or radical rhetoric. Drawing a clear line in defense of the national constitution is the fundamental duty of any government that wants to protect its people and secure a peaceful future. So that's the latest around the world, in Africa, West Africa, and in Burkina Faso.